Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have the pleasure of hanging out with Lee Noto. Lee helps women become masters of authentic self-expression, embodied confidence, and intimacy. In her past life, she earned her bachelor's degree in business and entrepreneurship and her master's in education. We love that. From teaching in classrooms of Hawaii, we'll have to talk about that, to running multiple businesses in New York City, she has a reverence for nature, learning, and a quick wit. In this life, Lee is a master coach with certifications in holistic healing and transformational coaching, and has a deep study in personal development, sacred sexuality, and spirituality. She shares her powerful communication tools and somatic practices that allow her clients to connect deeply to their emotions and their bodies. She guides them into deeper self-love, self-acceptance, curiosity, and play by allowing them and showing them how to boldly open their hearts in order to give and receive the epic love they desire. So you can find Lee, doing these things as well as singing, dancing, and talking in various accents. I'm not sure if we'll get those today, but Lee, I am so excited that you're here today.
Thank you, Hannah. It's such an honor to be here.
We have so much in common already. I recently came back from Hawaii. I was just in Maui.
So nice.
And yeah, education is close to my heart too. So I always think it's so interesting in these conversations, the past life, that comes up a lot of what we were doing or what path we were on before we, really dove into entrepreneurship. So what was your rebirth, if you will, from that past life to this current life?
Yes. For my whole life, I really thought I was going to become this corner office having businesswoman. This was the path that was set out for me. And it was exhilarating for me. As a young professional in New York City, I thrived on the early mornings, the late nights, the go, go, go. I really fit well into that hustle mentality. Only while I was doing that, I had no idea how burnt out I was. I mean, over and over again. And that was my wake up moment, was after a massive heartbreak, where I had completely suppressed all of my emotions. I pushed everything down. I tried to be happy for the path that this past lover was following, which was not me. And I didn't express my anger, my frustration, my confusion. Instead, I threw myself into my work. I was becoming a coach at the time. I had a full-time job and I was in an apprenticeship. And I did all the things as many new entrepreneurs do. And I suppressed my emotions. And that happened for months until one day I woke up and the entire left side of my face was paralyzed. I'd literally given myself Bell's palsy. And that, I couldn't ignore that. It was literally a slap in the face. I could ignore all of the other things like the cystic breakouts, the hives on my body. I could rationalize and justify why that could be happening, or I'll deal with it later. But my face being paralyzed, I couldn't. And that was the big turning point when I said, something has to change because this obviously isn't working. And I know there's a lot more underneath what caused the facial paralysis than minimal amounts of stress.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I hope that this conversation can help people, avoid that challenge. But I think it's so exciting, or inspiring, maybe is a better word, that your breakthrough came from a breakdown. And so often we think of these challenges or these hard times or these, like dis-ease, right? Not having ease in our body as things that we should just brush under the rug, or we're like silly, or we're gonna like fix this in quiet, when really these are things that we need to bring more awareness to, in my opinion. I've personally dealt with adrenal fatigue building my business, and I've only ever told my brother and my husband that, because it was like this, it's no badge of honor to put dis-ease in your body when you're supposed to be living your dream life. And so for you took that challenge and it seems like you've capitalized, or you've transformed it into some meaning for yourself and others.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the biggest wake-up calls of my life, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen with the facial paralysis, I had learned from the neurologist that that was one of the worst cases he had ever seen. I'd never heard anything like that from a doctor before. And, I'd really gone on to, at least in my own process, seek alternative paths to healing,
Yeah.
which included going very deeply inward.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went inward to understand what was really happening for me, I started to understand other people more. I started to become more compassionate, more empathetic, more present to what's happening for other people. And that has served me not only on a personal level, but as a coach as well, because we are there to be present, hold space, listen, and be a space in which transformation can happen for our clients.
Yeah. This is a little bit off topic, but I just feel very called to mention this because what you're saying brought another thing I've heard come to mind. So right now it's the beginning of December 2020. If you're listening to this in the future, we're still in the global pandemic of COVID and uncertainty and what's the new year going to bring? What should businesses be doing? And I've been hearing people tell coaches to be quiet, don't sell right now. Now's not the right time. People don't want to do this. I've been on sales calls where people are way less eager to invest or make a commitment. But what you are saying, and what I want people and coaches to hear from you right now, is that this is our time. The most stressful moments for you, Lee, for your client, for the world, is when coaches need to stand up and share their gifts. And if you had just figured out your face and went back to your cubicle, what would that have meant for the hundreds of people that you've impacted in your coaching career? And I want all of us to kind of think about that. You have two options right now, moving into the new year. You can be quiet, what everyone might be telling you to do, or you can stand up for that purpose and that impact and that future self and future clients that really need you.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. But I just felt that needed to be stated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll join you on the soapbox because I think at this time, it is a social and moral imperative that we share our stories, that we share our processes, the things that worked for us, because what we want now more than ever is connection, is a sense of safety within. And if you have a way to help others create safety in their bodies, in their health, in their businesses, share that information. Now's the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So for folks listening, whether they're a coach or not, and maybe they're noticing more stress or tension in their bodies, or maybe they're just shorter with their partner in life, let's talk about some of the things that you discovered, or you said, going inward and play. What are some of the things that people can be practicing right now in these difficult times?
So one of the things that I see in myself and I see in just about everyone else is when the stress comes on, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, our first instinct is to go up into our heads and start to either exacerbate the issue by naming all of the possible scenarios of how things could go terribly wrong, or to go into our heads and try to logic and solution our way out of whatever thing we think we're in. So at that point, typically what works best for me and what has worked for so many of my clients is getting directly into the body. And there are so many easy ways to do that. First one is breath. So starting to slow the breath down. And this is not news to anyone, but if this could be a nice reminder, then allow it to be that. So even doing a 5-second breath in and a 5-second breath out for 3 minutes, which is no time at all, I promise you will leave that 3 minutes feeling different than when you came into it.
Yeah.
And doing that 3 times a day gets us into the present moment, gets us into our bodies. When you have space and when you have a place to sort of expand more, one of the things that I love is starting to move the body. So physical movement is helpful. If you're in a work environment, then doing something perhaps a little more contained, which might be neck rolling, stretching out. If you're at home and you can jump up and down as if you are like at a music festival, fist pumping, put on a song and start to shake it out. There is real scientific data for shaking. And so when you look at animals in the wild, for example, when an antelope escapes the death grips of a lion, once it's somewhere safe, it will shake. It's shaking out the trauma and tension. And then it moves on with its day. The animal doesn't hold on to this traumatic event the way humans do, because we have not developed or made socially acceptable these mechanisms that our bodies would naturally use to shake it off.
Yeah.
So if you have the space to do that, I encourage it.
And isn't it funny that what society has made acceptable is like wine, which I'm all about the wine, but like these things that we think are going to help us, like pills and hit routines and like all of these sexy ways to feel better, get better at life, reduce anxiety and stress. Like, it's not sexy. It's the stuff that that you need to do since you were an infant, and you just want it to be different. I don't know. I'm totally guilty of this too. A few months ago, I was talking to a friend about wanting to wake up with better energy. I was just not getting out of bed like I used to. And I was like, okay, so here are my ideas. Cause I'm a solution seeker. Okay. I don't just have problems. I'm gonna figure them out. So I'm like, I think I should maybe cut out gluten. I think I should do more yoga. I think I should run, just run outside more. I think I should drink more lemon water. And I had this whole like white girl list of things that I thought outside of me were going to be the thing. Right. And he was so sweet. He was like, yeah, you could try all that. Or I'm just going to show you this breathwork guy on YouTube and just try this a few mornings. And I've gotten into breathwork. I ended up hiring a breathwork coach because that's how I work.
Yes.
But it was a lesson for me. And that's why I can say that right now. It's like, guys, it's not sexy. It's not an elimination diet and all the jazz. It's like taking deep breaths.
Yeah.
Moving a little bit. I don't know. I just really appreciate those reminders.
Me too, because it's like, I laugh at the labels that are like gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. And it's like so sexy to see these things now because they call to us. We want the next trend and fad. And, the one challenge I have with that, even though I participate in the trends and fads myself, and I love them, is that it continues to perpetuate this mindset that there's something wrong with us and we don't have the answer within. So we need something outside of us, because our breath isn't enough or isn't the answer, or movement isn't enough or isn't the answer. And if we really just got back to basics, especially during these times, I think we'd find that we'd be so much more well off for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I like the trends too, right? I'm all about giving something a try, doing intermittent fasting, whatever. And I think each of us have found in our lives things that do make us feel better, that reduce tension, that make us more productive. And a lot of people listening want to share those practices, the things that they've discovered. So I'd love to shift now into how you took your breakthrough, your rebirth, and created a business. Talk us through the beginning steps, and focus more on what worked, if that's possible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So while I was in the corporate role in New York City, I went back to school to get 2 coaching certifications. Thank goodness I had done it then, because not long after I went on a spiritual vision quest to Peru, where I said, I wish to let go of that which is not truly me, came back from that trip and got laid off. So I'm so grateful that I started to build that vision for myself while I still had income from another role. And there's, for those listening who are straddling between 2 worlds right now and are seeing the passion, there is an opportunity to start to take even small steps toward that dream. So that was one big lesson for me. A lot of the journey has really, really been about understanding the metamorphosis I have made. And one of the biggest things I struggled with my whole life was authentic self-expression. I could express to the extent that it sounded good and sounded smart, but it wasn't really me. And so I've been tracking the process all along. And Something that worked really well, this is going to sound cliche, but being myself, truly doing the things that brought me joy, using the outlets and platforms that bring me joy. They're, especially as budding entrepreneurs, we are hit with so much traffic and marketing that all the internet marketers are using for these 5 steps to this. And some of them are great. And if they work for you, awesome, run with it. But if you're finding that it doesn't, what really worked for me along the way was asking, what brings me joy?
Mm-hmm.
How can this be easy? How can it be simple? How
Mm-hmm.
can I play and have fun? And what am I going to be excited to share? Because if I'm excited to share it, I am going to be magnetic. The
Mm-hmm.
way that I talk about it's going to be different. I'm going to want to talk about it. And that was how I built my business. I mean, I tried other people's way
Yeah.
with varying degrees of success, but the one thing, if I could boil it down to anything, was ask, what brings me joy? And then run with it and see what happens. Because even if it doesn't turn out the way I thought, at least I had a good time.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, I always tell my clients, look, you can either go on a vision quest to Peru or,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm just kidding. Or I always ask, what if this were simple? What if you
Yes.
could envision the most simple, fun version of this sales conversation or this launch? And it's really challenging for people to answer that question. We have this tendency to overcomplicate and like put these hurdles in front of the finish line. And so
Yeah.
I think those questions are so powerful, simple, but
Mm-hmm.
essential. What brings you joy? What if it were simple? What's exciting?
Right. And it's fascinating because even when we don't have the answer to those questions, that's telling in and of itself. And that's another sort of line of introspection that we can say, okay, it's fascinating. I now I find myself in a place where I have looked everywhere outside of me for the answer. What if I tried looking within? What could happen then?
That's a scary place for a lot of us.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So for people who are looking to do that envisioning quest inward, right?
Mhm.
What are some best practices to tap into that?
Okay, first one, as soon as you said that, lots of compassion. A lot, like a whole heap of continuous compassion, like you have it on tap, like the best beer in town, the best kombucha.
Yeah.
Compassion. Because sometimes when we look inward, we don't always like what we see, or
Yeah.
we start to see our tendencies. We start to see the ways in which we respond to early childhood trauma, the defense mechanisms, the protective mechanisms. And I, through and through, the one way I have found the most efficient, effective route to transformation is self-love and compassion. There are certain times, maybe when we're launching something in our business, that being rough and tumble and pulling all-nighters can work, but it's not sustainable when we're talking about inner transformation.
Mm.
So that's sort of, um, you know, hyper rough approach doesn't work when we're trying to make sustainable change. So when we're looking inward, if we can meet ourselves with compassion and love, it allows a space for real alchemy, real transformation, and to be able to see ourselves in truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been having this conversation with myself lately. Um, I don't know if it's the moon. I don't know. But personally, I've been having a lot of like flashbacks to the past of mistakes that I've made. Okay, so there must be something
I don't know
happening.
what's happening.
But it's like fifth grade stuff. Like, I can't believe I didn't share my sandwich with Tierney. Like, that's a real thing. Like, I'm like having these like not quite childhood, but like adolescent mistakes coming back. And I keep telling myself that like I'm the only person with that spotlight on me. And
Mm.
coming back to the present has been so powerful. Excuse me, I've been kind of upping my meditation routine the more that I notice these like memories or voices or visions, because every time I just come back to the present and look at that opportunity of like this moment, not fifth grade lunchtime, that's done and fine and no one else is thinking about it, but like in this moment and setting that intention for when I come out of meditation has been a really powerful practice for me to do what you're saying, because I didn't know how to do. I was like, okay, I'm with you, Lee, like love me, but fifth grade, what the hell, So I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that personal tidbit, because it does have to become a practice.
Yes. For sure. Yeah.
Amazing. So with this permission for people to use their inner guidance to map out their business plan, I'd love to know what you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about what business looks like for you and how joy is part of your current business plan.
Yes, for sure. So all of my work is in the realm of self-expression and intimacy. So how are we using our self-expression in all forms to create more intimacy, both with ourselves and in relationship? And so one of my areas of specialty is working with women to communicate needs and boundaries as a way to reduce conflict and deepen intimacy in their relationships. And this has been, again, another huge challenge that I've had my entire life. So, put one in the box for teaching what you've been through as
Yeah.
a business idea.
Right.
And so all of the work now is around embodied self-expression. So not only how are we expressing verbally when there's a challenging situation, but how are we expressing creatively? How are we expressing as a means of human fulfillment and joy? And, one of the ways in which I've started to make very small tweaks to my process in my business is when I'm brainstorming something. Yes, it's nice and organized to do it in a Word document on my computer in a neatly filed folder, which feels great. And what I really like doing is getting out my big canvas paper and all of my colorful markers and doing it that way. That feels so much more expansive. I have fun. I put on music. I make my favorite. Yes, a
Yeah, I'm
whole
showing
like
my,
a,
if you can't see on video, I pulled out my Crayola crayons, which are always right at my right hand because I am with you on the creativity. Yeah.
yeah, I have on the floor behind me a whole thing of markers and a canvas board.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a small tweak like that. The outcome is still being achieved. I'm planning for something, only now I'm planning in a way that brings me joy. There's just a different way to achieve the same outcome. And so that's been a really pivotal part of the process for what I'm planning now. And that is, really in the weeds workshops about needs and boundaries, how we're communicating them, how we're reconciling our own emotions, and then a program on embodied self-expression.
Hmm. And just to clarify, when you talk about relationships, are these working relationships, sexual relationships, mom relationships? Where are you really focusing right now?
Well, the great thing is that when we learn this, it applies everywhere. So
Mm.
needs and boundaries are a thing in every relationship. It is how I know where I end and you begin.
Mhm.
Typically, a lot of the client work that I do is with women in romantic partnerships. However, in some of the broader programs that I teach, we'll talk about just general relational dynamics because we tend to follow patterns no matter
Yeah.
where we're showing up.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. And I love those, just like those small shifts of like planning your content doesn't have to be a Google document. It can be an
Right.
art project.
Totally.
The same thing when I have to do like invoicing or admin, I'll go to a brewery or a coffee shop and make something about it light and fun.
Yeah.
And it's not always like you must plan what the joy path is going to be and how you're going to monetize it, right? It's those little daily moments where you bring the joy that I think you're saying leads to the program and the sale. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, for the creators and entrepreneurs that are listening, one of the things that I've asked myself, even as I'm planning the program that I'm creating now, is what would I have fun sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Because, listen, we're all making this up. Truth be told, we are all making it up. So if you have an area of expertise or deep experience with something that brings you joy, share it. Like that, we have
Yeah.
no idea how far our joy travels.
And like you said, it's really our calling, our
Mhm.
duty to be doing that right now more than
Yeah.
ever. Amazing. Well, so many gems already. I do just have a couple of last questions and kind of a rapid fire, if you will.
Love it.
Thinking back to Lee, kind of in that transition from former life to current life, what's something you wish you had known? Or what would you now, Lee, tell that Lee?
I'm safe to slow down. It is okay to go slow. It's okay to luxuriate. It is
Mhm.
safe.
Beautiful. And to that point, I think you gave us one of these already, but if someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, great, I want to have joy, I want to do these things, but what is one thing I can do today to get me closer to my dream life? What would you say to them?
Hmm. So, I mean, I feel like that answer is do one thing that brings you joy. Do one thing that brings you joy. And if you don't know what that is yet, make a list of potential things that have brought you joy in the past, and try them on. Let it be almost like you're trying on new clothes, and have a great time with it
Mm-hmm.
to get back to that inner joy.
That is great advice. My last question is just if people want to continue this conversation with you and learn more about your work, where can they find you?
Sure. So they can find me on Instagram at @LeeNoto_. I'm Lee Noto on Facebook, and you can also drop me a line through email, hello@leenoto.com. That's also my website, leenoto.com.
Amazing. Leenoto. Nice and simple. So good.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lee, for being here and sharing so much of your wisdom and your energy with us today. The rest of us, friends, I will be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.